Conservatory faculty and friends. My name is Katelyn Dietz, and I teach band across the junior high, high school, and elementary campuses. And I'm really excited to be speaking with you today. I'm going to try and do this in a vlog style, so I'll be walking around showing you some of my home, and hopefully you can hear a little bit about me in the process, and excited to share with you today. So I graduated fall of 2017, so in December, and then moved back home immediately after graduating. And I found a job a couple months later in very close to home, the next city over, Morgan Hill. And then I was working full time. Now in college, my degree actually wasn't in music, not my background, but I had done music as long as I could remember, well, yeah, pretty much. Starting from a young age, learning piano. And then a lot of you know I went to Valley Christian for junior high and high school. So I started in band. And then in college, I was part of multiple groups, programs with different like clubs and organizations in leadership that revolved around band and music. So I went from doing all that on like a daily basis, putting in a lot of time and investment into those things, and then moving home away from friends and routines and working a 9 to 5, which an office job, which I had like never done before. I'd worked jobs at school that were just part-time kind of, retail jobs, customer service jobs, but never like an adult job really. So for the first time ever, I found myself not doing music on a regular basis with other people. And that kind of left a big hole in my heart for a while. And it stayed that way until when I moved back home, I was able to reconnect with my home church that I'm at now. And we got a new worship pastor and leader. And I approached him just because I wanted that music back, and it seemed like a good idea or like a first step. I'm part of the church, and we're building our worship time and group. So I said, hey, if you ever need a saxophonist, because that's what I was most proficient at, let me know. And he was like, I'm not sure if that's the vibe we quite have, but can you sing? And I was like, that's not the quite the vibe I have, but okay. So I joined our worship team as a vocalist, and through that I just started learning more and more about Christ-centered biblical worship, stuff that I had never really considered and never seen how deep it went. And so one of the things I was super thankful for in becoming part of the worship team was just learning more about what scripture has to say about how we worship and the way we worship and how we can bring honor to God through our worship. And so some verses for you are Ephesians 5:17-19. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is, and do not get drunk with wine, for that is debauchery, but be filled with the Spirit, addressing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart. So in this verse, he's saying, do not be drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit, kind of contrasting the opposite is being filled with the Spirit. And part of being filled with the Spirit is addressing one another in psalms and hymns. There's a quote from Pastor John MacArthur talking about this verse specifically and how it relates to worship. He says, the Spirit-filled life produces music. Whether he has a good voice or cannot carry a tune, the Spirit-filled Christian is a singing Christian. The first consequence of the Spirit-filled life that Paul mentioned was not mountain-moving faith, an ecstatic spiritual experience, dynamic speaking ability, or any other such thing. It was simply a heart that sings. So it's through that better understanding of scripture and how worship is represented in the Bible and commanded in the Bible as a Christian, and being a part of the worship team and seeing how scripture is reflected um, in church liturgy, in our church history, and how it's developed. Sorry if you hear squawking, that's the chickens. So I'll try and show them in just a second. But I've developed such a love for worship and how we can worship Christ and worship Him in all things, not just Sunday morning during the 20 minutes of singing and playing that I did and that I still do, even though that's great. But worship comes in many different forms, not just then. So through that, I began to learn more songs, and that brings me to a song I wanted to share with all of you because it has been kind of on repeat in my mind and in my heart, and it's called From Everlasting, and it's based around a psalm, Psalm 90, and it comes from an album from Sovereign Grace Music, where they recorded many live recordings based around different psalms. So I would totally recommend you to check it out. Great music, and great music that represents scripture and what is said in the psalms. One of the verses in the song From Everlasting is, "And all our days are held within your hands. We rest within the wisdom of your plan." From everlasting to everlasting, God. And so we can rest within the wisdom of His plan and His timing. And it's a very simple melody to this song, but it sticks. This song is helpful reminder for me on how great our God is and how everlasting He is, and that aspect to Him. And currently at my church, our pastor is preaching through Romans, and so this song kind of called back that series for me. And in Romans, we've been in Romans 8 specifically recently. Romans 8:18 says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of Him who subjected it, in hope that the creation," and it goes on, "itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God." That was through verse 21. So this song kind of pulls me back to this verse. The use of hope in this verse is not like, oh, I hope it'll rain tomorrow, or it's kind of like wishful thinking. But in this context, hope actually means it is going to come. It is to happen. We are resting in that hope. We have that hope, and it is for sure. And one aspect that I just love that the song reminds me of is that our future is set. Most of the time we frame our future based on our present. So what am I going through now? Am I going through grief or sorrow or hard times, or am I happy? Or does the future look bright based on what I'm going through right now? But as Christians, we know the future. We know what's coming. We know that at the end of it, whether He returns or He calls us home, we are going to be reunited with Christ, and we will be with God. And so our future actually informs our present. And so we can live with that knowledge. It changes how we live. It should change our tastes, how we spend our time, how we make our decisions, because we know our future. And so we don't it informs how we live our present. And so we're not stuck wondering about the future in that timeline of everlasting, right? From everlasting to everlasting, we know the end, we know our future. And so that gives us hope in this time, a hope that is secure. That's not just, oh, I guess I hope, but no, it is our hope, a hope we can cling to that is definite. And so I love that song because it just brings back all of this in my head to Romans and 2 Peter and how I can lean on that and know that my God is everlasting and He has a plan in all things. He's making all things good.